tell me, who are you?
Who am I? My name's Rachel Messer. I'm a new psychology professor at UPIKE. I got here in July, and I am mainly teaching some gen ed classes like general psychology and lifespan, and then also some specialized upper division classes in personality, abnormal psych, and I'm teaching a new course this spring called Emotion, Stress, and Health, which is biopsychology and social justice.
I'm sure emotions, stress, and health, that's not really relevant to a college student's life, right?
At all.
And what is your specialty? What's the thing that you're really most passionate about inside your field?
Most of my training is in language and how that relates to overall health. So what I'm really interested in is using people's language or language use to predict health outcomes, in particular risk-taking. So we have some data that's been published that suggests certain patterns of speech. For example, riskier language sometimes correlates with riskier behavior health-wise. So if you think about some health behaviors that are risky, we're talking about things like putting yourself in danger recreationally when maybe it's not necessary, alcohol and tobacco use, things that are risky for your health in that way, and then also just people who are prone to what we call sensation seeking, which is they always want that adrenaline rush. And there are certain types of risky language, like cursing, for example, that tend to correlate with some of those behaviors. And we actually call cursing behavior or swearing social risk-taking, because technically when you use that kind of language, you don't know what the outcome's going to be. And risk-taking is literally defined as a behavior or an action that doesn't have a set outcome, could go one way or the other. So it really kind of makes sense, the parallel between I'm putting my health at risk or my body at risk through, let's say, my recreational cliff diving. I don't actually do that, but some people do. And maybe also I like to kind of push people's buttons and push the line and the boundary and, you know, use language that maybe is shocking to some people.
Fascinating. That's really cool. I suspect as a kid you probably were not thinking about language, risk-taking, and being a professor of psychology. Maybe I'm wrong, but as a kid, what did you want to do?
I wanted to be a librarian for a while, or a veterinarian. I grew up with a lot of animals. We had dogs and cats, rabbits, we had some ducks at one point, and then horses, and I loved being around them. I loved, you know, washing them and brushing them, and I really thought I wanted to take care of animals. But also I loved reading, and I was reading all the time. I remember a lot of times my friends would be outside in the summers when we didn't have school, and they would come inside and I would have books beside me, and they would just say, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this?" And I really liked to kind of get lost in the world that I was reading about. That was a really rewarding experience for me. So I feel a little librarianish now. I do a lot of things with literature, the research literature, and picking out things for students to read and things like that. And I still love animals. I have a dog and a cat, so.
When we think about dreams, right? Obviously as a kid your dreams are a little different than maybe your dreams now, but we think about dream jobs. Is there a dream job out there? I mean, I know it's maybe cliche to say, well, I'm working my dream job at this moment, but tell me about your dream job.
Sure. I do feel like I'm in an iteration of my dream job now. I didn't know I wanted to teach until actually I was towards the end of graduate school. So I was in my, let's say, early 20s to mid-20s. And up until then, I just thought I would do various things. I really liked research, so I thought maybe I would be a researcher, a research scientist of some type. Or I wanted to work in public policy for the Department of Ed or something like that. But then I was a graduate teaching assistant for general psychology for the first time, and almost from the first day of teaching, once the jitters were out of the way, I had never felt so in place and sure about what I wanted to do, and was uncomfortable then at the idea of varying that dream. or that aspiration. And I think I liked the interaction with students the most. I'm a pretty social person, but I also liked seeing students have a light bulb moment. That's one of the best parts. And just spreading, the findings that we have in psychology to people who maybe wouldn't normally take a course in that, which is a great thing about psychology, being a gen ed at UPIKE. And I really liked when students would ask me things like, "You're close in age to me," which I was at the time. "You're close in age to me, what did you do, when you figured out that you had a strange attachment style," or whatever the problem is that they had learned about in class. So I bonded with a lot of students like that. And at that same time, I got really interested in mentoring, research mentoring. So I had a few experiences where I had students who were pretty unfamiliar with the research process and ended up being able to come up with a final product. And actually my first student that I mentored just got her first faculty job at like a top private institution in the US. So it feels really good to be able to, it kind of makes me feel old, but it also makes me feel really good to be able to see people grow so much in what I feel like is a very short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that answered the question. But
yeah, that's great. So when you think about your own journey, and like think about getting into your own field, was there something that happened to take you into this field?
Yeah, actually, I used to watch the old musical My Fair Lady. I was really into older movies for a while, and I got that movie and I became really interested in the way language and speech was picked apart in that movie, so that's like a major part of the storyline. And I kept thinking, I wonder what that person's job is. I wonder what the job is where you get to listen to people speak. And I had always been really interested in accents, and I seemed to notice differences in language from a pretty early age. And I just was I would keep thinking about it. So I remember one time I was visiting my great aunt in her assisted living facility, and her new roommate had an Italian accent, and this was in a small town, Kentucky, and I was just obsessed with this lady. And I remember saying, "Where'd you get your accent?" Like she had bought it from a store or something. And I don't know, I just have always been fascinated about that. And then I figured out that the brain has a lot to do with how we speak and our language abilities. So then I'm sure someone told me at some point, you should look into psychology. But the first time I remember wanting to do psychology after I found out what it was, I was in 7th grade. So it's been I got to college immediately. When I got there, I declared psych and just stuck with it after that. I added French major to it, so I did double major, but still along the same lines as what I was really interested in.
That is really cool. I think that's fantastic. 7th grade, kind of really even starting to focus there. So when we think about our sense of call, everyone has a kind of, if there is a call and all that kind of, but we're going to ask you if there is a sense of call. Could you put yours in a sentence, what you're called to do or be?
I think empowering people to figure out what they're good at, but not listen to maybe the cries of others or the doubts of others. And it's kind of what do you feel like you're not working at every day? I really think all the time that I can't believe I get paid for this, like doing this work, because I love it so much. For some reason, I think we have an idea that a job is something you do that's separate from your personal life in American culture. And I feel really lucky that I get to do something I would enjoy doing without being paid, honestly, as my career. Longer than a sentence, but.
So what I'm hearing is that UPIKE could stop paying you and you just keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
Fantastic. I'll make sure I'll tell everyone that. We all have people that have made a big impact on us. You even talked about a person that you mentored now that got this cool teaching job. Who has influenced you?
I would say, starting in elementary school, pockets of teachers and educators that I think made me look at the world so differently that it started making me consider different paths or different techniques in learning or different ways to think about things. I had two English professors in high school who were some of the only high school teachers who mentioned things like feminism. They had us read books by feminist authors, and I think that was a huge thing to see relatively, young and well-known people in the community who were teachers talking about big ideas like that. And I know it wasn't easy. I remember that for them. I remember that about them. And I think it just completely, it was something I knew, but I didn't have a name for it, and how to keep, pushing towards that idea. So I think teachers along the way, and when I was an undergraduate, I had research mentors and professors who were so supportive, and I had very little idea about what I would do with my bachelor's. So I talked to one of my professors about it, and she said, why don't you go to graduate school? It's like, oh, a master's, okay. Still, that didn't, make me think any further. Like, I'll have 2 more years of education. And then I found out there were PhD programs, and it just, I think a lot of people say this, but when you don't have a lot of family experience or family guidance about academic life, a lot of things are left up to chance. And I think I just really was privileged and had a lot of benefits from my path on the people I encountered and how supportive they were. And my family has always been supportive, but when you don't have the direct experience, it becomes so much harder to guide children through that process, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something very powerful about having really good mentors who know the way and can help you get there. For you, as you've tried to figure out, obviously you're still very young, so who knows what 30 years down the road may lead you, but what would you say were some key determining factors for you to kind of figure it out?
Mm-hmm. When I was 18, I was just getting ready to start college, and I had this summer job that was at, it was in Pennsylvania, and it was at a YMCA camp, and I had it originally signed up to work at this part of the camp, but I ended up working with the special needs campers there. And I was really interested in it because I knew I liked psychology and I wanted to go into that, and the kids were just so amazing and full of personality. And after that summer, I kind of felt like I grew up a lot, and I just realized how lucky I was because a lot of those kids couldn't do daily activities for themselves. Just things that I knew I was taking for granted. And so that, I think that was kind of an early turning point. And then I went through some complex trauma when I was in my early 20s. And that, in psychology, we call it post-traumatic growth. Probably other fields call it that too. But after I worked through that, with the help of other people, obviously, it seemed so much clearer what I wanted to do. And it kind of encompasses the word vocation that you were using, because I just kept thinking about how post-traumatic growth is often a feeling of you want to pay it forward, you want to do something extra meaningful and authentic, and authenticity is what's prized in your life after that, and I really feel like that's what happened to me. So it's kind of like a silver lining of a bad situation, and after that I just felt like I didn't need to decide. There was nothing to decide anymore. It was just where I wanted to do this, and I wanted to be somewhere that was closer to my family, and I loved my time at Moorhead, so I was thinking about Eastern Kentucky, and ended up here.
When you share this wonderful, growth opportunity and all this, all the hard work that it took for you to get there. Just really admire that, the hard work. So when we think about, as you sit with people and help them and, you know, help them listen to things that they really want to do and be, and then also silence all the other naysayers, I guess, or negatives. How about people who just have no idea? You know, there's a lot of people come in and they think, okay, cool, I'm going to do this, and then it turns out, okay, what do you say to people who just have no idea?
If they're students, I say, what class have you taken that you looked forward to going to that class every day? You enjoyed the material, you felt like you really got it, like it came almost naturally to you or easy to you. And then what types of jobs can we look at that use those skills or that subject area? And sometimes people are interested in everything, which is great. And then sometimes people say, well, I really didn't like, you know, this section of classes, but I loved in my writing class when we talked about poetry, and poetry was just like a puzzle that we were putting together. And sometimes it's things like that that the person would have never considered as a possible career path. But until you try something, you don't really know, and that's kind of the beauty of gen ed or liberal arts education, I think.
So just get out there and try some things and figure it out.
Yeah, science and photography. Gotta try it.
Awesome. Well, we are so much better because you're here, so I really appreciate your time and sharing with us.